Their advocacy transformed personal grief into a mission for systemic change. While legislative progress has been slow, their efforts raised awareness and prevented other families from experiencing similar tragedies. Romeca's death became a catalyst for important conversations about guns, fear, and responsibility. From profound loss came a determination to protect others. Romeca's death also highlighted vulnerabilities faced by domestic workers, particularly housekeepers who enter strangers' homes regularly. The cleaning industry implemented better protocols for address verification and client communication. Companies began providing workers with identification badges and advance notification systems for homeowners. Some services implemented buddy systems or check-in requirements for workers' safety. Labor advocacy groups used Romeca's case to spotlight the risks faced by predominantly immigrant and minority women in domestic work. They pushed for better protections, insurance, and emergency support for workers. Romeca's death reminded society that domestic workers deserve safety and dignity, not suspicion and violence. Every worker deserves to come home safely at the end of the day. This tragedy offers critical lessons for anyone who owns firearms or fears for their home security. First, verify before you act. A simple question through a closed door could have saved Romeca's life. Second, recognize that fear is not the same as danger. Our perceptions can be wrong, especially when influenced by bias or media-fueled anxiety. Third, understand that legal permission to use force doesn't mean it's the right choice morally or practically. Fourth, invest in security measures that don't require killing. Cameras, alarm systems, and communication offer protection without deadly risk. Finally, examine your own biases about who represents a threat and why. A moment of patience and reason could prevent irreversible tragedy. Romeca Blackmon's death occurred within America's complex relationship with firearms and self-defense. The United States has more civilian-owned guns than people, and gun ownership is often framed as essential for personal protection. This culture creates a paradox. While guns are intended to provide safety, they frequently escalate situations that could be resolved peacefully. Research shows that homes with firearms are statistically more dangerous for the residents than homes without them. Yet defensive gun use remains a powerful cultural narrative, supported by organizations and media outlets that emphasize worst-case scenarios. The result is a society where some people are so armed and afraid that ordinary interactions become potentially deadly. We must ask ourselves, are we actually safer, or just more dangerous? Texas, like many states, has embraced expansive self-defense laws. The castle doctrine eliminates the duty to retreat when someone is in their home or on their property. Stand your ground laws extend this further, allowing the use of deadly force in public spaces if someone feels threatened. Supporters argue these laws protect innocent people from prosecution for legitimate self-defense. Critics contend they encourage violence and provide legal cover for racially motivated killings. Statistical analysis shows that stand-your-ground laws correlate with increased homicides, particularly in cases involving white shooters and black victims. The laws create a gray area where fear, whether reasonable or not, can justify killing. When self-defense laws prioritize the shooter's fear over the victim's innocence, justice fails. The media's portrayal of crime significantly impacts how people perceive danger. News outlets disproportionately cover violent crime, creating the impression that danger lurks everywhere. Reality television and true crime content, while entertaining, can amplify anxiety about home invasions and stranger violence. Social media spreads viral stories of worst-case scenarios, further fueling fear. This constant stream of frightening content shapes how people interpret ambiguous situations, like an unexpected knock on the door. Research demonstrates that heavy media consumption of crime content increases fear of victimization, regardless of actual crime rates. Alfred Smith's paranoia about home invasions likely reflected this media-influenced worldview rather than actual risk in his safe neighborhood. The stories we consume shape the fears we carry, and sometimes those fears kill. Romeca's story also reflects economic realities for many working-class Americans. She worked multiple cleaning jobs to support her family, without the luxury of refusing work or negotiating better safety protocols. Domestic workers, often women of color and immigrants, face particular vulnerabilities. entering strangers' homes, dealing with communication errors, lacking employment protections. The gig economy and service industries create precarious working conditions where a simple mistake, like going to the wrong address, can have catastrophic consequences. Romeca didn't have the option to turn down a job or demand better address verification systems. Economic necessity drove her to that wrong door. For many workers, survival means accepting risks that others would never tolerate. Every detail of September 14, 2011, presents a point where tragedy could have been averted. If the cleaning service had provided the correct address, Romeca would have knocked on the right door. If Smith had called through the door asking who was there, Romeca would have explained and moved to the correct house. If Smith had looked through a window or peephole, he would have seen a middle-aged woman with cleaning supplies. If Smith had valued human life over property protection, he would have chosen caution over violence. If our society taught conflict resolution instead of fear-based responses, this encounter would have ended with an apology and correction. Each of these moments represents a choice not made, a question not asked. Tragedy is rarely inevitable, it's built from a series of choices. Alfred Smith made a deadly assumption, that an unexpected knock on his door represented danger rather than a simple mistake. This assumption, combined with access to a firearm and legal cover from self-defense laws, created the conditions for murder. We all make assumptions daily, usually without fatal consequences. But when those assumptions involve other people, particularly when filtered through racial bias, media-fueled fear, or cultural stereotypes, they can destroy lives. Romeca paid with her life for Smith's unfounded assumptions. Her family paid with decades of grief. Smith himself paid with years in prison and permanent infamy. And society paid by losing a valuable member and gaining another example of preventable tragedy. Before you act on an assumption, verify. A life might depend on it. Many who followed this case felt that justice was not served. An 8-year sentence for killing an innocent woman seemed inadequate. Smith's lack of remorse compounded the injustice. The legal system's acceptance of fear-based justifications for violence enabled this outcome. True justice would have included recognition of the systemic failures that led to Romeca's death. The implicit biases, the inadequate laws, the cultural acceptance of fear-driven violence. True justice would prevent future tragedies through meaningful reform. But the system offered only a manslaughter conviction and a sentence that would see Smith free after a relatively short time. For Romeca's family, watching her killer eventually walk free felt like a second violation. When the legal system values fear over innocent life, can we truly call it justice? The best way to honor Romeca Blackmon is to learn from her death and work to prevent similar tragedies. This means examining our own fears and biases. It means questioning whether our perceptions of threat are based on reality or prejudice. It means supporting reforms to self-defense laws that prioritize de-escalation and verification. It means creating safer working conditions for domestic workers and service employees. It means teaching our children to ask questions before making assumptions. It means building communities where people see neighbors, not threats. Romeca's life mattered. Her work mattered. Her family matters. Her death should matter enough to inspire change. She knocked on a door. She deserved to go home. We owe her better. If Romeca Blackmon's story has moved you, don't let that emotion fade without action. Start by examining your own assumptions and biases about who represents a threat. If you own firearms, commit to exhausting every other option before using lethal force. Support organizations working to reform self-defense laws and protect vulnerable workers. Have conversations with family and friends about fear, bias, and responsibility. Vote for leaders who prioritize human life over property. Challenge media narratives that amplify fear and promote violence. Speak up when you see assumptions and biases that could lead to harm. Every small action contributes to a culture that values life over fear, understanding over suspicion. Change begins with each of us choosing differently than Alfred Smith chose that September day. On September 14, 2011, Romeca Blackmon woke up, prepared for work, and set out to earn money for her family. She was doing everything right, working hard, supporting her children, contributing to her community. Her only mistake was trusting a wrong address. That simple, innocent error cost her everything. Alfred Smith, consumed by fear and armed with a gun, made a choice in seconds that destroyed multiple lives. The legal system, designed to protect the innocent, instead offered minimal accountability. But Romeca's story doesn't end with her death or Smith's inadequate sentence. It continues in every person who learns from this tragedy and chooses differently. It lives in the advocates fighting for change, the families honoring her memory, and the communities demanding better. Romeca Blackmon knocked on the wrong door. But the failure was ours, a society that chose fear over humanity. Her memory demands we do better. Romeca Blackmon's life mattered. Say her name, remember her story, and most importantly, act on the lessons her death teaches us. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others who need to hear Romeca's story, and subscribe for more in-depth true crime coverage that honors victims and demands justice. In the comments below, share your thoughts. How can we create a society where fear doesn't lead to tragedy? What reforms would prevent cases like Romeca's? Thank you for bearing witness to Romeca's story. May her memory be a blessing and a catalyst for change.